Well, here we are. Jerome Baker looks like he may no longer be a Miami Dolphin. And I remember it was just a short few years ago when I absolutely went in on that extension and how he wasn't worth the money. And here we are. And I remember the backlash I got, but we're going to talk about Jerome Baker today. Also, the Dolphins made another defensive cut as they clear out money and get ready with tampering about 6 days away. Also, we'll talk about the latest on WIlkins and Tua Tagovailoa. He said something a little portion of this fan base ain't going to like. He wants to be a Miami Dolphin for life when discussing his contract extension. We're going to talk about all that, so much more, including linebacker options, where the Dolphins go from here, current cap space. We got a lot to cover. So do me a favor, smash the like button, subscribe if you're new, and as always, let's get into this.
Loses the football. Touchdown! Got it!
You have got to be kidding me.
Jalen Waddle has a Dolphin touchdown. And he will score! Grier down the near side, man open. Touchdown!
The run from Tua Tagovailoa.
Touchdown! He's going deep. He's going over the touchdown again.
Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan. Let's go!
What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason, and we are back here for another one. Appreciate all y'all for coming through on this Tuesday, as there is breaking news not too long ago that we're going to get into with Jerome Baker being released, as well as a couple other players. There's a lot to go over. We're going to cover it all, but before we do, I do got to say something here before we get into everything. Listen, I constantly hear, Grier can't draft, Grier can't do this, Grier ain't this, Grier ain't that. Well, I'm sitting here watching fans lose their mind over the fact that Hunt is walking, WIlkins is probably going to walk, now Jerome Baker's been sent packing. Like, he's drafted players that are some of the favorites of this fan base, but at the same time, he can't draft. We got to straighten this out for a second. Now, if you want to sit here and say he can't draft depth, okay, we can have a conversation. When you look at starters from Waddle to Tua to Holland to Phillips, he can draft starters. Hunt, Jackson now, Devon Achane eventually here, right? He can draft starters. It's with a depth where we can't hit on. The Michael Dieters. Liam Eichenberg looks like he might be one of the rare offensive line depth hits, and they might be trying to force him as a starter at right guard. My Lord. So, listen, it is what it is, but let's remember when we say that Jerome Baker, when y'all come out here and say Chris Grier can't draft, look back at then you shouldn't be complaining about any of these players that are leaving. No, I'm not talking directly to you guys in the chat and such. I'm just speaking generally. If you're one of those people who says Grier can't draft, Grier's got to go, then I don't want to hear any complaining about the players that he's letting walk, because these are all Grier picks. So there should be no crying, because by these people's standard, we can't draft, so these people walking shouldn't be any good, right? See how that doesn't add up when you start mathing the math on that one? So I wanted to say that. Listen, okay, I got to give him his props. So, and another thing I got to say, Anthony Weaver. We are seeing players, Jerome Baker and Xavier Howard were not mentioned by Anthony Weaver in his introductory press conference. They're gone. Now, we know he wants to keep Waddle. We know that, Waddle. WIlkins. We know he wants to keep WIlkins. They're trying, and we're going to talk about that today too, because it's not over. The Wilkins thing is not over by any stretch of the imagination. Now, if we get to March 11th and there's no deal, we're closer to over, okay? Another thing I wanted to talk about too, before we get into everything, because one thing I've been stressing on this channel for weeks upon weeks is getting out of front of that Waddle contract. Getting that money taken care of. And, now you saw Mike Evans sign the deal that he just signed, all right? And it was serious money, okay? Like, it was not cheap, all right? We're talking about a 2-year, $52 million contract, all right? 35 of that guaranteed. And this is why I've been saying get out ahead of this deal with Waddle. Right there, you do the math, that's about $26 million a year. Now, Spot Track, they came out with their contract projections yesterday, and I've been saying you got to get it done before Amon-Ra St. Brown, Justin Jefferson, and Jamar Chase all hit it. These are and CeeDee Lamb. These are the terms that they put out. Justin Jefferson, 4 years, $128 million. 70 of that guaranteed, and a $32 million annual average hit. So when you talk about guaranteed money, let's talk about guaranteed money here for a sec, right? So Mike Evans has 35 guarantees. That's about $17.5 million spread out over 2 years, right? $70 million guaranteed for Justin Jefferson is also a little under $20 million a year. I believe that also works out to be about $17.5 million. So we know that number is going to be higher just based off of Mike Evans is already making about $17.5 million guaranteed. Now this says $100 million practically guaranteed, so that bumps it up to about $25 million. CeeDee Lamb, annual average of about $30 million. They project him for a 4-year, $120 million deal. 55 guaranteed in signing, $75 million practically guaranteed. Jamar Chase, they project him for 4 years, $120 million. $30 million annual average salary, and about $70 million practically guaranteed. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 4 years, $112 million, 28 annual average, about 65 practically guaranteed. You got to get out ahead of Waddle right now. Holy jeez. Please, you got to get out ahead of Waddle now. Holy, you got to get out ahead of him now. Maybe they like Tyndall more than we think. And I don't know about that, brother. We're going to talk about it. Over 252 of you already in the room. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you're new. Let's get into it. There's no point in continuing on here. I've given some quick thoughts. Let's hop into it and let's discuss. The Miami Dolphins announced that they are releasing starting linebacker Jerome Baker. The two sides discussed a restructured contract, but couldn't reach an agreement. The Dolphins left the door open to him coming back if he chooses. If you're a Patreon or channel member, I've updated you lately and said they even had contract discussions about an extension a la Tyreek Hill to lower his cap hit and spread the money out. No deal could be agreed upon. And now this is where we are at. Jerome Baker is now, and there's a possibility he comes back, but he is now on the open market. And I remember, oh my Lord, I remember a couple years ago when he signed this deal. Now, he restructured last year. Remember, he's already restructured once. I remember when he signed that deal, I told everyone this is a bad deal. I mean, he had a $14.7 million cap hit this year. There was no way they were at his level of play. No way they're going to pay him $14.7 million. That just was not going to happen. And back when we signed him to the deal, I said this is not a good deal. I said he won't see this money. And here we are. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, listen. Everyone wants to love him because he loves his mama. That's cute. That's all great. But this guy is not a $15 million a year linebacker. And I had people in my threads, in this chat back then when he said that, oh, compare his numbers to Shaq Leonard before he fell off. And Fred Warner, he's the same. I'm like, bro, this guy couldn't lace Fred Warner's shoes. I said it back then, and I'll say it again. He's an off-ball, wide nine blitzing linebacker. Like, his best trait outside of blitzing is pursuit speed. He's decent in coverage, but his best trait is his pursuit speed. Listen, another homegrown talent gone, but I'm not crying. I'm sorry, I'm not crying. No, I said Baker didn't want to agree to an extension. They obviously couldn't come to terms of extension. I didn't say Tyreek. I said, like Tyreek, Baker and the Dolphins had discussions about an extension to spread his money around. Nico comes in here and goes hard and says Baker's a $5 million per year guy. Yeah, based on the market, I think he's like $7-8 million. You know, if Drew Tranquil is going to go out here and get like $6.5 million, I'd pay Jerome Baker. You know, not much more. Let's put it that way. So this is where we're at now. Giving you guys a further update from behind the paywall at the Miami Herald, courtesy of Daniel Oifusi and Barry Jackson. The Dolphins are releasing inside linebacker Jerome Baker in a cost-cutting move that will save the team millions in cap space, but will create another hole to fill this offseason. Baker was set to enter the final year of a 3-year extension he signed in 2021. He had no guaranteed money remaining on his deal. According to a source, Baker agreed. So Jerome Baker had agreed to take a pay cut from his $10.5 million base salary in 2024, but the sides could not agree on an exact number. I'm telling you, they were saying you got to come down to like 6 or 7. A return to Miami has not been ruled out. At the NFL Scouting Combine, General Manager Chris Grier did not commit to Baker being on the roster in 2024. He said, and I quote, "We'd love to have Baker here. I think the big thing for us was to have the new defensive staff come in, spend time watching the team, watching the defense as a staff together. And once we have those discussions with the defensive staff, Mike, we'll get together and then we'll make that decision here in the next couple of weeks." The move will free about $9.8 million in cap for the Miami Dolphins, who are projected to be around $18 million over the cap, as they also made another release today. In 2023, Baker extended time because of injury for the first time in his career. Extended time. An MCL sprain sidelined him for 4 games late in the season, and then a dislocated bone in his wrist kept him out of the wild card loss to Kansas City. Baker appeared in 13 games, recording 78 tackles and 1.5 sacks. The Dolphins selected him 73rd overall in the 2018 draft. Over 8 seasons, Baker recorded 587 tackles and 22.5 sacks. David Long Jr. is set to return on the final year of a 2-year deal. He signed last offseason. And 2022 third-round pick Channing Tindall could be primed for a bigger role. He's played sparingly in a defense in his first 2 seasons. I'm going to tell you right now, get ready. Get ready. They are going to make a run at Patrick Queen. I'm not saying it'll get done because I think Patrick's going to be looking like 18 plus million, but they're going to make an effort for Anthony Weaver. Watch. That's why I don't see them going after L'Jarius Sneed. And like I've been said, they're comfortable with rolling with Kohu, Cam Smith, and Jalen Ramsey. So there's not a lot of money on the books in the secondary. And then Long has 1 year left. All you do is you structure Patrick Queen's deal so he's not a big cap hit this year. You give him his guaranteed money. He's not a big cap hit this year. And then he starts becoming a cap hit after David Long leaves. That is 110% an option. Now, there's guys I like. At the trade deadline, I was saying trade for Frankie Lavu. He was a low cap hit. You get the rights to... I'm still out here saying I would make a run at Frankie Lavu. Projected to make about 10 or 11 million this year. Could be a little bit higher. But Frankie's a beast. He was on my top 30 free agents list. He was in the top 10. Everyone knows I wanted him at the deadline when we did the trade deadline show of players I would make a move for. Frankie Lavu's that dude. Now, other options. Okay, let's start with free agency. I think a guy like Jordan Brooks is going to cost too much money. He might cost more than Frankie Lavu. But a guy I liked last year in the offseason when I did my free agent targets was Azeez Al-Shaair, right? He was with McDaniel in San Fran. You know, behind Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner, he's not going to cost a lot. He's going to fall in your $6 to $8 million range. He had a $5 million deal with Tennessee last year. You know, listen, he's not the coverage linebacker Baker is, but he's better against the run. He can lay the hits. Another guy I liked last year was Josie Jewell. Now, I don't know if it makes as much sense with Fangio gone, but he's pretty decent in coverage, all right? And, you know, he seemed like the centerpiece in Denver to the extent of he was like Baker calling out plays, you know, and he's a real reliable linebacker, and he's cheap. Again, probably like $7-8 million. And then another guy I liked last year, I mean, I wanted him, and that's Drew Tranquill. He was cheap for the Chiefs last year, won his championship. I mean, you know, I think he could be a real good steal at his cost. Drew Tranquill does a lot of good things. So if you're talking about free agents, those are guys I like. Because I'm not trying to look to break the bank. Okay? I'm just not. You know, unless it is a Patrick Queen, which I don't think they would. But Frankie Lavu, because I don't think Levante David's leaving Tampa. Let's get over that one, right? Jordan Brooks, you know, he's dealt with torn ACLs. A torn ACL. I apologize. My bad. And I think he's still going to be expensive. You know, again, could they go get Bobby Wagner on a 1-year deal? Maybe, but do you really think I heard last year he didn't want to leave the West Coast. But when you look at Azeez Al-Shaair, Josie Jewell, Drew Tranquill, those guys make sense as cheap options who I think could make an impact. Right? Those were all guys I wanted at some point, whether at the trade deadline or on my free agency target last offseason. So you wouldn't hear pushback. Now, for the draft, I mean, you got my top 3 linebackers. It looks like we're going to be doing a linebacker big board, huh? Edgerrin Cooper out of Texas A&M. Obviously, a guy we've talked about a lot on this channel. Peyton Wilson out of NC State. Jeremiah Trotter's been talked about at Clemson. You also got Junior Colson out of Michigan. You've got linebacker options, right? Not even getting into the Tommy Eichenbergs, the Cedric Grays, and the Jalen Fords, or the Trevin Wallace and how he tested of this class. There are options in the draft. I'm going to tell you this one thing, spoiler alert. My first big board is going to be coming within the next week. Okay? And it's either going to come right before free agency or it's going to come right after the first couple of days of free agency are open. And we're going to do tight end first. But there are options in the draft and there are options in free agency at linebacker. There are definitely options. So where I'm at with this is I like our options. Everyone knows I respected that Jerome Baker got better every year when he was asked with whatever he was tasked to do in various defensive schemes. But at the end of the day, the money never made sense, and I never thought he was the level of player that this fan base, to an extent, tried to hype him up to be. So here we are. Now again, obviously, like Barry Jackson said, the door is still open. Dolphins made another move today, and they cut veteran corner Keion Crossen, who's obviously a known special teams contributor as well. And, you know, guys, it always made sense that this was going to happen. We knew, I mean, this is something Neil's talked about on this show. That's just, it always made sense for this move to happen. It always made sense. And no one's going to shed any tears. Let's also be honest with that. You save about $2.9 million, and he didn't even play last year. So that's another. I mean, you look at the money we're saving right now, right? If you look at these cuts, you know, this puts us in a position where, look at our cap right now. If you look at our cap, let's fly over to the cap. But listen, Keion Crossen, dime a dozen. You know, ain't no one shedding tears on that. Like, let's be honest here. Over the cap has updated now with Crossen gone, with Baker gone. Here we are in terms of cap. About $18.827 million still over the cap. And remember, you got to be compliant by the start of the league year, 4 p.m. on the 13th. So 8 days. And there's still money to be made and saved. You know? I mean, you roll down the list. I mean, look at Raheem Mostert. Jeff Wilson saves you $2.895 million. We know that's coming. You can pretty much, you know, guarantee that one's pretty much coming. Right? And then you get into the cheaper contracts here. But there's going to be some restructures, because when you look at the restructure, you know, I think you're going to see, you know, up here, you know, you're going to see at least a Tyreek Hill restructure and probably a Jalen Ramsey restructure. I don't know what the plan is with Bradley Chubb. Now, if they activate Jalen Phillips' fifth-year option, that means his money wouldn't kick in, his new and then they sign him. His new contract would not kick in next year, it would kick in the year after. So you could restructure Bradley Chubb because you're pushing the money to next year, and then next year would be Bradley Chubb's final year. You could do that. They're not going to restructure Armstead because he might retire, and you don't want to push that to next year, right? So, I mean, you look at the restructures here alone, you know, we're $18.827 million over the cap. And, you know, up here alone, that's $45 million right between those three restructures. I mean, you could restructure Zach Seiler too, because he's going to be here. Right? So now you're at $50 million, right? You add that to the 18.827, and that would put us about, you know, $31.5 million under the cap. So there's a ton of flexibility still remaining. That's just, you know, that's just where we're at right now. There's still tons of flexibility remaining for this Dolphins team right now. You know, I mean, cutting Mike White makes sense. Another $3.5 million, right? So there's money to be freed up here. There is money to be freed up here. I mean, and you look at Eichenberg, definitely hit some playtime escalators. Look at his cap hit. Rose to 4.163 like me and Neil pointed out. You could save 3.36 by cutting Eichenberg. I guarantee you could find a better lineman out there for $3.3 million than Liam Eichenberg. I'm just saying. I'm sorry, I'm just saying. Like, yeah, Armstead will be back next season, but it's the season after. That's why you don't want to restructure him. Because if you restructure him, you push money to next year. Not this season coming up, but the year after. You push money to 2025, and he might be off the roster. So I'm not lying. Eichenberg, bye-bye. I can save $3.36 million for see ya. Duke Riley seems like he's gonna be another one too, right? $2.5 million. I mean, look at that. $2.5 million, 2.895 from Jeff Wilson. Right? So that's $5.3 million. Eichenberg, now we're at about $8.6 million. Plus the restructures that I just went over. I mean, you can clear up some money here still. There's still a lot of money to be cleared up. So that's your current cap outlook right now with the Miami Dolphins, and that's just where we're at. That is just where we are at right now. So they're getting there. They're going to have to keep going. And, it's going to be really interesting to see how they start playing with the money when they got to re-sign these guys like Phillips and Holland and such. So Brandon Shore, Chris Grier, mainly Brandon Shore, you got your work cut out for you. That is for sure. So let's see what y'all got in the bag. All right. So, and, that's 100% the correct right there. It's being set up right now, right? Can I be honest with you? That's the first thing I thought when I saw Jerome Baker and WIlkins are walking. No more of that goofy culture. Because I brought this up about WIlkins. Listen, are people truly intimidated by Christian WIlkins? Like, be honest with yourself. Sure, when the ball snaps, he's a beast. But then he's joking around. Look at Josh Allen. Josh Allen, laughs him off now. Doesn't even take him serious. Now here we go. Now it feels like we're getting a little bit more serious, like that Ravens culture, a little bit more about the business. So we'll see, at least defensively right now. Anthony Weaver seems like he's more serious about the business. So Anthony Weaver looks like he's already, shifting the spectrum here. Just saying. And listen, David Long only has 1 year left. This is David Long's last year. I would not be surprised if they make a run at Patrick Queen and they just structure the money so he's not a big cap hit this year. I would not. Patrick Queen has said he wants to follow Anthony Weaver. I would not be surprised. And now with this move, guys, they're not banking on Channing Tindall. Let's not start lying to ourselves. Now, Tindall might get reps. Tindall might be depth. Tindall might be elevated from that standpoint. But they're not starting Tindall. It's not happening. So, now, continuing on. I didn't really have to talk about it yesterday. But, because we talked about it on Sunday, the word was already out, but people were talking about it yesterday. So, over 430 of you in the room, smash that like button, subscribe for new. Christian WIlkins, this is why I have Cameron Wolf's portion and not the Ian Rappaport. Okay, so yesterday it came out that, Ian Rappaport said that the Dolphins will not tag Christian WIlkins. But look at what Cameron Wolf said. What have I been telling you? $24 million, right? Look at this. 2 executives told Cameron Wolf in Indianapolis at the Combine he could match or top Quinnen Williams, Jeffrey Simmons, Dexter Lawrence in the $22 to $25 million a year range. Good luck. You are not getting that money in Miami. Guys, Mike Evans just signed a 2-year, $52 million contract with $17.5 million guaranteed. Okay? $26 million. You want to pay a DT $25 million a year, $1 million less than Mike Evans? That is crazy. That is lunatic money for a defensive tackle. That is dumb money. That's paying him as much as a guy who just scored 13 receiving touchdowns and had 1,255 yards. On 79 receptions, mind you. Not like he had 100 receptions. You're talking about Mike Evans. Has had 1,000 yards or more in every season since he's been in the league since 2014. $94 touchdowns, 11,680 yards from 2014 to 2023 in 10 seasons. That's incredible. That's like averaging, that's stupid when you add it out. He's basically averaging 1,168 yards a year and 9.4 touchdowns a year. And you want to pay Christian Wilkins as much as a top flight receiver? That's nuts. Nuts. And what's happening? Here we go. I've said the only guys you pay $25 million at defensive tackle are Aaron Donald in his prime or Chris Jones. That's literally what I've said. You got to be arguably first ballot Hall of Famer to make that kind of money. Which both those guys might be. And now what are we seeing? What are we seeing? This is affecting Robert Hunt. It goes back to what I said a couple days ago. That explosion in the defensive tackle market last offseason, we are now seeing the consequences. What are the consequences? Interior linemen are going to have to get paid more money interior offensive linemen are going to have to get paid more money to take on this high-priced interior defensive lineman. That's just how it's going to go. You can't be paying interior defensive linemen $25 million and expecting interior offensive linemen to be okay with taking, 12 or 13 at the top of the market. That market's going to blow up. And that's what's happening. Because like I said on Sunday, the word is, I showed it right there. The word is Robert Hunt could command more than $16 million a year. Now I've heard $15 million, and I've reported that on Patreon and on the community tab for channel members only for quite some time. But now it might be even higher. That's some... We're talking about real, for defensive tackle, man. Please. I just cannot get down on that. I just cannot get down on that. Now, you want to talk about $18 million? Okay, let's have a conversation. But that market is ludicrous right now. I'm sorry. It's absolutely ludicrous, that market. Absolutely ludicrous. Now, Ted, he donates $2 and said, how do you feel about Jazan Newton for the Fins? And he's talking about the defensive tackle out of Illinois. He's a big boy, right? He's about 300 pounds, 6'2", right? I think I love his motor. I think he's got a great set of pass rush moves. I just think he is one of the better interior pass rushers in this class. No doubt about it at all. I think he's, I think he's a good player, man. I think he's a real good player. I think it's between him and Byron Murphy for the top DT in this class. That's for sure. But yeah, he's a stud. He is definitely a stud. There's no doubt about that at all. I think man, but again, I don't think he's going to be there at 55. I just don't think he's going to be there at 55, and they're not going to take him at 21. I'll tell you right now, they're not taking him at 21. I don't think, I think, you'd have to look at maybe hope a guy like Gervonta Sweat maybe falls to you at 55, because I think Newton and Murphy, they'll be off the board for sure. I think. I mean, they offer, again, you're talking about one of the better interior pass rushers, of this class in Newton. So he's an absolute, he's a stud, and he's a pretty good run defender too. People sleep on his run defense, but he's a pretty good run defender too. It's the run defense gets lost in the shuffle of how good of a pass rusher he is, right? But yeah, I'm a fan. I like him. I'm a fan. I just don't know if he'll be there at 55, and I don't think they're gonna take Newton at, he might not even be there at 21, depending. I don't think it all depends on who Murphy or him are gonna go. But I think there's a good chance, Braden Fisk at 55, he might not even be there. You might have a little bit of a run. Right? It all depends. I don't think those guys will be there by 55. I think those four guys will be gone. I think Sweat, Fisk, Newton, and Murphy will be gone. Now, your best chance at 55 is probably Sweat. So, again, there's a chance Newton and Murphy could be off the board by 21. There's even that possibility. So, we'll see. We will see, but there are options. There's guys I like later too, right? Like everyone just gets caught on the names at the top. Like, a guy who'll probably be there at 55 who I like is Chris Jenkins. He's I like what I've seen from Chris Jenkins. Who else? I'm trying to think. Gabe Hall from Baylor. He's decent. He can be there. Now, I don't know if again, it's where teams have them ranked. Like, there's going to be teams that have Chris Jenkins ranked above Gervonta Sweat, right? Darius Robinson, what do you see him as, an inside or an out? He can play both, I think, right? He's another guy. He's probably going to be. There might be a little bit of a run, A guy I like too is Mason Smith out of LSU. There's options, man. And then you got Leonard Taylor, who obviously we interviewed already. So there's options at defensive tackle for this team. The problem is you have a pick at 21 and 55, and then you don't pick till the 5th. I go back to the point I made. We need a 3rd and a 4th round pick, or one or the other, or both. Lord knows we need both. Right? So, hey, I don't know what to say. There's options, and they'll be waiting for us. So, Christian Wilkins, this is going to be an offseason where Christian Wilkins might walk, Robert Hunt might walk, Connor Williams is going to walk. You lose Jerome Baker, you lose Xavier Howard. These are significant pieces, ladies and gentlemen. These are significant pieces. Now, sticking with Wilkins here, because there were some nuggets in Barry Jackson's article about it. And here you go. Though the Dolphins have decided not to use the franchise tag to guarantee Christian Wilkins' return to the team, the Dolphins remain very much open to his return, and lines of communications are open. So there you go. It is not one of those things where, hey, we're not using the franchise tag, you're free to walk. And that's according to a person with knowledge of the situation. And then he gives you some background on how we got to this point. And look at the Dolphins unable to come in agreement with their durable defensive tackle after discussions spanning more than 8 months. But with team officials still trying to retain him as Wilkins nears next week unrestricted free agency. Here we go. Last summer, the Dolphins offered Wilkins a contract that would have paid him in the top 10 among defensive tackles in both average annual salary and guarantees. As a perspective, Green Bay's Kenny Clark averaged the 10th highest per year salary last season among defensive tackles, about $17.5 million. So Miami's offer would have been at least that high, if not higher. 10 defensive tackles have contracts calling for at least $40 million in guaranteed money. The Dolphins would have offered at least that amount of guaranteed money to Wilkins. Chris Grier said a few months ago that Wilkins and his agent agreed that the team's 2023 summer offer was fair. And Wilkins' agent, Dave Mulgeta, generally hasn't addressed his client's contract publicly in the past, and Wilkins declined to discuss the matter consistently last season. So they made an offer that even Wilkins' camp thought was fair, but it wasn't good enough. But Wilkins decided that he should be paid in line with other defensive tackles who had much higher sack production than his pre-2023 sack numbers. Wilkins had 11.5 sacks through 4 seasons before producing 9 sacks last season. Wilkins bet on himself and produced a career high in sacks. Those overall tackles plunged from 98 to 65. His 10 tackles for loss tied for 52nd in the league and fell from 16 in 2023. The only factor at play has been how to reconcile his salary with Zach Seiler's and how much money to allocate at the position. The Dolphins offered Wilkins significantly more money than the 3-year extension that Zach Seiler signed last August, one that averaged about $10.25 million per year. The deal includes $20 million guaranteed. While the Dolphins cannot stop Wilkins from hitting the open market once Tuesday's franchise tag deadline has officially passed, which has, they will continue efforts to try and re-sign him. If the bidding reaches a point they consider unpalatable, then they will likely seek another veteran defensive tackle. Giving Wilkins the inflexible $22.1 million franchise tag would have handicapped Miami in free agency. But a long-term contract that could cut that $22.1 million cap number in half or more. If the Dolphins lose Wilkins in free agency, they are likely to receive a compensatory 3rd-round pick, presuming they don't go on an extravagant free agent spending spree, which is unlikely given their situation against the cap. Signing players who have been released or after June 1st work in the favor of teams within the rules of the compensatory pick formula. I mean, depending on the money Hunt gets, you might get another 3rd or 4th round pick based on what Hunt gets. So, I mean, that's where we're at. It's turning into a money game. It's turning into a money game right now, and we haven't even people are going to try and point to Tua. We haven't even extended Phillips, Holland, none of these guys yet. So, and don't think they aren't thinking about their future core, like the Waddle extensions, the Phillips extensions, the Holland extensions. All those matter right now. And all of those factor in. So, smash the like button. Subscribe if you are new. Now, this is going to make some people not happy, huh? Some people are going to be not happy here. But, c'est la vie. Tua Tagovailoa wants to be a Dolphin for life. The 2024 season could be a critical one for the Miami Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. Unless he extends an extension this offseason, he will be in the last year of his contract. Following his 4-year, $30.3 million rookie deal with the Dolphins, the team exercised his $23.17 million 5th-year option last March. But Tagovailoa is taking it in stride. I don't think there's any pressure, he said. The goal is to be a Dolphin for life. Staying in Miami actually would give him more time with his college coach, Nick Saban, who bought a Mercedes-Benz car dealership in Coral Gables, Florida, following his retirement as Alabama head coach. Saban's decision to hang it up caught many off guard, including Tagovailoa. It was shocking to me, he said, a couple days after hearing about Saban's retirement. Tagovailoa spoke with his former college coach. He hopes to hit the links at the Miami area golf courses With the legendary coach who also guided the Dolphins from 2005 to 2006, and we'll be spending more time in the region. He's the GOAT in college, Tagovailoa said, and I wish him all the best. Saban's coaching style contrasts current Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel, who's more like a friend. Tagovailoa said McDaniel's schematic and play calling decisions are more collaborative and that he encourages open dialogue. Coach McDaniel is so different, he said. It's almost as if you feel you could tell him anything. Tagovailoa spoke candidly while teaming up with the USAA, the official NFL salute to service partner, and Marine Corps Association to award John Jones and his brother with tickets to the Super Bowl and the chance to hang out with the Dolphins quarterback. Grateful for this opportunity, Tagovailoa said, this is the least that I can do in helping to give back. And listen, so there you go. The main thing is Tua Tagovailoa wants to be a Dolphin for life. How does that sit with people that think we should draft Penix at 21? And remember, I'm the one out here who was talking about Penix all year and how much I love him. But you don't take a rookie quarterback at 21 when you got as many holes to fill and you're in a win now mode. You ain't got the time to sit there and hope that a rookie quarterback can have a breakout rookie season. I mean, you aren't going to move off the guy who just led the league in passing for a rookie quarterback. It's not going to happen. So, Tua Tagovailoa, he wants to be a Miami Dolphin for life. Let's get that extension worked out first, sir. Let's get that extension worked out before we start talking about being a lifer. But further news on Tua Tagovailoa has come out of the Combine. And remember, I have Nick Hicks on every offseason, and this offseason will be no different. And we're going to dive into the things he's working on like we do every year. And also, boom, Miami Dolphins should see improvement from the quarterback Tua Tagovailoa due to no coaching. The Miami Dolphins star quarterback Tua Tagovailoa is coming off a strong 2023 campaign. Led the league in passing yards with 4,624 and tied fellow AFC East rival Josh Allen for the fifth in passing touchdowns at 29. Tua had a great season statistically. Despite the overall success this past season, there's still room for growth for the Dolphins signal caller. More importantly, Tua could be on his way to an even better season. While at the NFL Scouting Combine, I discovered that Tua has finally hired a personal quarterbacks coach. This was an interesting development to find out. He has not relied on a true offseason quarterback coach and trainer as most NFL quarterbacks do. Tagovailoa's tight-knit circle. One thing about the Dolphins star quarterback is that he keeps a tight-knit circle. He has relied on his trainer Nick Hicks to improve his strength and physical build. The issue is Hicks does not specialize in quarterback coaching that will improve throwing mechanics, footwork, etc. Most star quarterbacks and even non-stars employ a personal offseason quarterback coach/trainer. Well, until 2024, Tua did not. This can improve his game and push him forward, like correcting sight overextension with his lead foot and shortening his throwing motion to activate more of his arm without drawing back as far to generate force. Although Tua is not the most physically gifted quarterback on the planet, adjusting the simple, minute details can improve his game. This is critical heading into 2024 with the contract extension waiting in the wings potentially. Regardless, it is good to see Tua working with a real It is good to see Tua working with a real quarterback trainer coach. Is it enough to bypass a rookie quarterback in the draft? Time will tell. So, there you go. Tua Tagovailoa every season, every offseason, he always takes steps to improve. Now, this is not the first quarterback coach in the offseason he's worked for. Nick Hicks did have him working with a quarterback coach that Nick had access to. We've talked about it on this channel before, et cetera, et cetera. He has just never had a personal quarterback coach, and that is what they are doing. This is something I've been saying since the hip injury. I've been saying he needs to go to Tom House. Tom House. That's the one that I've been saying. Tom House corrected. Listen, after Drew Brees' injury, Tom House corrected him. Tom Brady, Tom House is one of the big people that helped him extend his career and be as good as he was. There's no one who works on mechanics and throwing motions better, throwing mechanics in general, better than Tom House right now, arguably, in the game. And that's what I've said. So I'm a fan of this move. It continues to go and show us, Tua continues to go and show us his work ethic every offseason. He puts in that work to get better. He has never been complacent. This man just led the league in passing yards, and he said, I want to find another level. Coach AJ, do you think Tua hiring a quarterback coach was a clause inserted by the Dolphins in a potential contract? Quincy Avery also works with athletes' first QBs. No, I don't think it was. And I follow Quincy on Quincy, I'm pretty sure, worked with Deshaun Watson too, if I remember correctly. So I hope he works with Quincy Avery. Quincy Avery's done some good work with some good quarterbacks. I know he did a lot of work with Watson. I don't know if he still does, but I know when Watson was in Houston, he did a lot of work with him. I follow him on Twitter. I think he follows me back too. But I don't think this has anything to do with the contract. I think this is just him continuing to be better. There you go. Deshaun, Stroud, Love, Hurts, Fields. Yeah. A couple of those he needs to keep working, huh? But yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of Quincy Avery. Got a little overprotective about Deshaun Watson, and I get it. You work with the guy. But man, listen, I'm a fan of this move. I'm a fan of this decision. He continues to take his craft seriously, and he continues trying to get better at his craft. And anyone hating on that, you better be CEO of your company, of a multi-billion-dollar company, and you better always be working on your relationship, and I better be able to talk to your significant other, and they tell me he gets better every day, he gets better every year, he does this. Like, anyone dissing this kid for doing this and continuing to show the work at, we got one of the hardest workers in the room when it comes to quarterback in the NFL. $466 in the room. Smash the like button. Subscribe if you're new. Man, I appreciate all y'all coming through. Almost 500 of you in the room. And listen, speaking of this is what Drew Rosenhaus had to say regarding his deal. And, this is coming from, again, Drew Rosenhaus does not represent him. Drew Rosenhaus is coming from an unbiased standpoint. Does not represent. He represents Tyreek. Does not represent Tua. And this is it.
Is Tua worth $50 million plus a season?
If you look at the current quarterback market, I think he is. This is a guy that when you team him up with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, I mean, it's a Barrios and the other targets they have at receiver. It's a dynamic combination. He was very efficient this year. I'd pay him. Who are you going to find that's better? He's young. He stayed healthy this year. That was the big question. He got it done. He's only going to get better, in my opinion. And they had a lot of injuries, and he still was very competitive. In the Dolphins, they had a terrific year with him at quarterback.
Now, I saw someone in the chat saying, we should draft Penix because how many deep balls did Tyreek and how many did they have to wait on? Did you just see all those highlights? I didn't see Waddle or Tyreek wait for one single deep ball last year. Tua's deep ball actually got better last year. His timing and placement actually improved. And he was already, if you go back, he's one of the better deep ball throwers coming out of college. I mean, I just watched, I've already heard that clip, so I didn't need to listen to it. But Drew Rosenhaus, who doesn't represent him, but guess what? Understands the market like it seems the group of little Tua haters don't. That's what the market dictates. And like I said, they're going to restructure it in year one when it hits in 2025. And they're going to probably restructure it again for the first couple years. Like what the Chiefs are doing with Mahomes to create consistent cap space. And there's going to be escalators. There's going to be playing time incentives. You can almost guarantee that. There'll be Pro Bowl incentives, all that kind of stuff. I've already said this. If you want to go 5 years, $250 million with about $180 guaranteed, I'm down for that. But it seems we're going to go a little higher. Now remember, when we're talking about guaranteed money, Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert are at about like 40. If you spread out the guaranteed money over years, you don't look at their annual average, but you spread out the guaranteed money, they're at about $43.5 million. Now, you saw the spot track projection for Tua 4 years, $220 million. And then their guaranteed money was obviously not as much for Tua as it was for what's his face? Herbert and Burrow. I believe it was about $41.5 million if you do the math. And now when you add in the 5th-year option, it actually drives, like if you were to sign on that 4-year, $220 million deal that they were projecting, right? And then you add in the 5th year, all of a sudden that brings it down to like $37 million. Right? They projected Tua to sign, 4 years, 220, 55 million annual average with 165 guaranteed. Right? So, and again, if you were to do it at the 5th year, it becomes a 5-year, $243 million deal, right? And again, you've got about, you spread that money out, and you're talking about like $37 million a year, basically in terms of guaranteed money, which is even less. So there's stuff to do, man. There's stuff to do, and it's coming. It is coming. It is coming. Get ready for that money. Get ready for that deal. I mean, especially as we get closer to, especially as, here's the thing. With Wilkins, Baker, X, Connor Williams, and Robert Hunt all potentially walking, they know they don't have that money on the books. They're probably going to ramp up negotiations with Tua Tagovailoa. That's just that is just me theorizing. That is not me dropping a nugget or anything. That's just me theorizing that they're going to try and get this done before that. This is going to give them even more of a reason to try and get this done. Try and save some face here. Now, there's going to be people that say, hey, that's crazy money, blah, 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 blah. That's just the reality of where we're at right now. And you know what? That deal hits in 2025. It'll get restructured. Then it'll get restructured again in 2026. Guys, the cap, by the time this thing hits in 2025, the cap's going to be up at least probably another $30 million. Next offseason, it's going to go up. By the end of 2025, we're sitting at about $255 million cap. We could be at about $315. So you're going to get, look at Dak Prescott wants $60 million a year. And he has all the leverage. Get this done before that hits, A. B, y'all think you have it bad? That's going to be even worse. So, Eugene, do I think it'll be done this week? I've maintained and I've said they want this extension done before free agency starts or a few days after at the latest. They want this done. They want to play with their money, man. I don't see this dragging into training camp. I do not. It's not happening. Over 460 of you in the room, do me the favor, smash the like button, subscribe if you are new. I appreciate each and every one of you for coming through. Man, we are getting closer and closer to 15K. Let's get there and help us get there by subscribing if you're new and smash the like button so we can get that video out there. Appreciate all of you who donated. If you want to donate, you can become a Patreon. Patreon.com/Phinside The NFL. You can become a channel member, or you can donate through the live chat, or you can donate through PayPal, paypal.me/Phinside. So I appreciate all the donations, especially during the off season. Man, tomorrow I'll be back with Richmond and Ball Game for the finish line. Thursday I'll be live with Neil for Fin Too Deep. And I got that first big board coming your way very soon. And next week, ladies and gentlemen, we are 6 days away from the Legal Tampering Open and 8 days away from the new league year. Smash the like button, like I said. Subscribe if you're new. And as always, fins up all day, every day until Margaritaville, they send that cease and desist our way.